Those of you who know me know that my 2-bus is kind of my security blanket. I know if something is good or bad because I know my 2-bus so well, and that's a mix of software stuff and outboard stuff. I use a combination of what's happening in the box and the pieces out here and my converters, and that's basically how I know if something is where I like it to be or not. It's my one consistent thing in a very non-consistent form of work that I do across multiple genres. I have gotten some comments about, well, our stuff's never going to sound the same because we're not going through tens of thousands of dollars of 2-bus gear. And it's not like I bought this stuff overnight. This was a collection over a very long period of time. You're probably not going to have a Wes Audio NG2 into an Audioscape G Stereo, into a Neve MBP, into Burl conversion. Some of you will have way more than that. Some of you will have nothing, and that's totally fine. Now, the reason that I like it isn't necessarily because of any one of these pieces, but when you're hitting iron and you're hitting converters hard, there's like a 3D thing that happens. There's a width thing that happens. And that has been really hard for plugins to replicate. And here we are with a plugin that I've used for about 6 months now that I feel can get you pretty close to that area for a small fraction of the price. This is a sponsored video. Soundtheory is paying me to make this video for me to show you around Kraftur. Now, this whole reason I did this was because there was pushback in some of the stuff that, well, we can't do what you do without that 2-bus. That is absolutely not true. This is an easy way for me to show that because this is the first plugin that I've been able to use away from my studio where I felt like, hey now, this kind of feels like hitting iron and it's not dumb expensive. There are other plugins that can do this. This one's $99. It's not that bad in the realm of plugins. And I don't like doing plugin videos because there's always pushback and you inevitably look like a shill, but I want to approach this from the standpoint of, look what you can do inside the box now. Tools like this weren't available very long ago, especially not at this price. By the way, Soundtheory is having a Black Friday sale from November 11th to December 2nd. Gullfoss is marked down 40% and the new Kraftur plugin is marked down 30%. Now that gives you plenty of time to go pick these up if you are interested. But there is a 2-week demo for Kraftur and Gullfoss. If you want to try either one of them out, you get 2 weeks to try it out and see if this is a good fit for you. And if you happen to enjoy it, it can be on sale for you until December 2nd. Let's get back to the video. I want to show you some stuff. So here we are in a session. This is very classic country, and if this isn't your vibe, we are going to jump around to different styles. But this is one that I think you can hear. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of openness. You'll be able to hear saturation easily. It's a little more laid to bear. So we have Kraftur here. I want to show you what's happening and how I'm using it first. So let me show you what's going down. In the session, like very classic country.
Once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
See, that may not be your bag. That's not the point. If we go down here, this listen track, this is my 2-bus. This is what everything is getting to eventually to run through some plugins, some outboard stuff, and then that goes through my print track where I can hit record when it's enabled. And then that prints a printed set of all these things down to 2 tracks, a left and a right. So this master, this is just what's going to my speakers. So here you can see my control for my Wes Audio tube. You can see I'm doing very little EQ here. Looks like we are on red mode on this thing. And there's a video coming on this all on its own, but that's not the point. I just want to show you what's going on. Very little of this is contributing to sound. On our actual 2-bus track here, I have trim. This is just how hard I want to hit my outboard stuff. The MBP, that is what's getting out of Pro Tools into my outboard. Wes Audio NG Tube, Audioscape, G Stereo, Neve, Portico 2 MBP into a couple preamps, and then we are back into Pro Tools. That goes to Black Box. I use this on just about every mix. It spreads it out.
Once you're down in Texas, Bob.
It's subtle, but it just kind of expands the sides in a way that I really like. then Kraftur, then Flatline. And you'll see Flatline is the threshold's up to 0. My ceiling's pulled back just to make sure my peaks aren't hitting things for distribution. But I mean, this is a pretty raw version of this song, kind of in a board bound state. So I want to show you what each of these things is doing. So this is with my 2-bus, very little happening. I'm not hitting it hard. Here it is in.
Once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
Let's take it out.
Cause once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
Without Kraftur.
Cause once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
All right, let's play. So Kraftur, basically think about this as a multiband saturator clipper. What you have here on the triangle, and if you go up here to the logo, you can click this, it'll tell you like you can do different color schemes. Most of these are pretty whack. I keep it on dark. A little hard to see. It gets a little disco in here if you're not careful. Offensive. So the triangle here, everything's happening in parallel, which to me is very useful. Also, you'll notice up here a match button. Useful. You're not going to use that in a mastering context because remember, most of what this is emulating is like hitting converters and hitting outboard gear or running a console hot. So most of the time what you're doing in that situation, you're hitting it that way so that it can be louder, which is why when I show examples of outboard gear, it's really hard to gain stage because the point is you're hitting iron so that it gets louder. So it's really hard to make that distinction in any effective way. This way, at least while you're doing that, you can tell is nothing comes for free. There's going to be some degradation of audio somewhere. Now you can weigh that. Okay, how much distortion do I have? Am I okay with that? And then take the match off and see how loud you are. It's a really interesting way to do it, and I can show you what that's actually going to do here in just a little bit. So Flatline is really just here for meters. So let's keep it open for fun. Let's keep our match on. And let me just show you kind of, I want to start from 0 and we'll see about how I would set this. So what's going on here in the triangle? So dry, this is all 100% dry. You could bypass it and nothing would change. You're completely dry. That's your unaffected signal coming through. Single, that's a single band. You can see the over here changed to 1 band of saturation. So if I move it over here and we have a multi-band, if I split them out, you can see the different multi-bands and now single. So if you're right in the middle, you have effectively a mix of your dry signal, that single band, the entirety of the signal saturated. And then you also have your mult where you can switch where your crossovers are. So if I want to solo this out, let's get this back in the middle-ish. Let's just solo a low band. You kind of see what's happening here. Let's see what the mids are doing.
'Cause once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
So I can decide how saturated I want each band, how far the threshold I'm bringing down is. Now what we're viewing here is kind of like a histogram. This isn't your EQ. This is where is the energy in the sound. And you can see based on the colors, like orange is low, blue is mid, yellow is high. So where does the energy lie in each one of these bands?
Once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
Now we are in match right now. So if I turn match off, let's leave it on. Let's look at our meters. We can bypass and unbypass. See if we notice any degrading things happening to the audio, and then we'll see where our levels are.
Once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is
minus 15.5. Let's take match off.
'Cause once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
Same spot. Let's push this thing. Let's turn match back on and let's see if it can start to get hairy. So again, I have auto gain on, so the harder I drive this, we're going to start to notice some distortion. We can play with offset, we can play with knee, but let's just see if we can notice some things happening here.
Cause once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
That's pretty toasty right there.
Cause once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
I mean, that pulling it back to about 7 dB, that's not far. Let's see where our levels are now.
Cause once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
Now you want to really blow your mind. We can be very careful about how we're doing this and then push the level and watch how hard and how loud we can drive this.
Cause once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
So what I did was I pulled back the mid shift to about 3.9. I pulled back the high shift and I took the low to -6. It's not going to affect the lows very much, but I pushed the drive. Clipping is on. So what we end up with is kind of an effortless loud mix, like I'm hitting converters hard.
Cause once you're down in Texas, Bob Wills is still the king.
It's a little toasty, but that's being fast and loose with it. Let's go to another genre just to try this out a little more. And then I have one more after this where I'm going to show you some unexpected things you can kind of do with this. So again, here we see Kraftur in a very different context and a very different type of song. A lot more low end energy, a lot denser of a mix. So what does this thing look like now? On my two bus, you'll see again NG Tube doing a little bit on kind of the low end of this thing. I didn't have anything to do with the making of this track, just general mixing here. God Particle doing its thing. If you like it, you like it. Ozone, just a little bit of dynamic EQ, and the maximizer's like not touching it. Yeah, it's not even really on. MBP, this is, again, that's my two bus going into Tube EQ, Audioscape, Black Box again, then Kraftur, and then this time instead of Flatline, we have Pro Limiter essentially doing the exact same thing. No limiting, we are just grabbing that top transient. So in this case, all of our volume and vibe is coming from Kraftur. So I'm going to turn this off.
Wanna know, I don't wanna know, I don't wanna die young. Did you lose yourself in an empty space?
Let's turn it on.
Wanna know, I don't wanna know, I don't wanna die young. Did you lose yourself in an empty space?
That is loud. That's loud. That's -5. Hard to do with any other plugin. I rarely use limiters when I'm mastering ever because I'm normally using a context like this. A clipper is like the last thing I like to hit. I don't know why. I don't know if that's right or wrong. That's just what I've always done. So what are we doing in here? I have a mix of all three, the single band, the dry, the multi. So we are kind of using a mixture of everything. Now let's go to match and see what's actually happening.
Wanna know, I don't wanna know, I don't wanna die young. Did you lose yourself in an empty space? Filled your mind with things that made you fail.
You can tell it's more aggressive, but it's not obliterating the track. And again, with this off, I'm hitting low -5s, almost -4s. I'm a little uncomfortable with how loud that is, but again, it's not hurting the song. But if I pull this back,
Wanna know, I I don't wanna know, I don't wanna die young. Did you lose yourself in an empty space?
It can help you so much to form however you want that to sound based on the multiband stuff. So if we really want to lean in here, turn on match to see what we're really doing and just mess with each one of these bands.
Wanna know, I don't wanna know, I don't wanna die young. Did you lose yourself in an empty space? Filled your mind with things that made you fail.
You can see you can keep your low end clean or clip it. Like it's easy when we listen in solo here.
Wanna know, I don't wanna know, I don't wanna die young. Did you lose yourself in an empty space?
But keeping in mind, if you're using it parallel, you're gonna go more aggressive. Now, if we go full mult, we're not gonna get away with that kind of color. Now, you'll notice offset here, offset and knee. This took me forever to wrap my brain around. And talking to Eddie at Soundtheory, and if you know Gullfoss, like they think outside the box with their plugins. So I wanted to understand this, and part of like why I even decided to make a video was in talking to them and their thought process behind a plugin like this, and that they're not afraid to do something completely different than what analog could even dream of doing. But offset, you can think about it bringing things lower in the spectrum, closer to that non-linearity point. Whereas knee is what's going to affect things at the point of that threshold. That's how I understand it. Like you can kind of see it in the shape as well. So it's bringing those things lower in the spectrum, closer to that non-linearity point. So it's going to start saturating a little earlier.
Wanna know, I don't wanna know, I don't wanna die young. Did you lose yourself in an empty space?
So we can really hear it when we're just listening to the mult. But I find that I use this in a parallel context by far the most. And in this case, I like the mix of all of these.
Wanna know, I don't wanna know, I don't wanna die young. Did you lose yourself in an empty space?
It just has a way of like pinning the darn thing in such a good way. So one more example. Now this is a song, this is one of my songs. And when I released this for the video, I did not have all of these on here. As you can see down here, more of an extensive 2-bus. Like I said, it's my security blanket. Here's a little bit of the song.
Cut the noise and find my own position. You won't change the world, just spewing your opinion.
There it is on the 2-bus. No surprise. We've been down that road before. I want to show you on individual channels where I really like this. I use a clipper on drums all the time. I have been using BX Clipper for the longest time. Awesome clipper. If you have the Plugin Alliance bundle, I don't know why you wouldn't use this. It's great. I just love clipping drums. Kraftur, the match feature, right? So let's set this to 0. So effectively, we're not doing a whole lot here. Now, I'm not saying you should. I'm saying you could. With the match feature, we can sculpt this into the roomiest, most bombastic drum thing you've ever heard. Check this out. So if we take a look at our mids here. Not that it matters. I'm going to darn near bottom the thing out anyway. So now what I'm going to do is just push the drive like crazy. Now remember, this is in match. So what's going to happen? We're distorting this like crazy. What does that sound like? A compressor. Like if we're doing this real crazy. So this is going to bring up the room, right? Let's check it out. I am going to turn the offset up just so I start to bring the stuff low in the spectrum closer. So here we go. And if you don't want it that saturated, let's start pulling these back. At these levels, distortion is what we're doing. It's a little too much fun. If we're going at it from a pretty typical standpoint, this is about where I sit with drums. It just brings them forward. It just gets that nasty in your face thing. Let's go to bass. So here's our bass. I can use Kraftur kind of like a distortion pedal. So I'm mixing dry and malt, a little bit of drive, a whole lot of offset, a whole lot of neat. I want stuff to saturate like crazy. Don't mess with the low end as much as you can. All the mids. Here's what we got. First off, then on, I am gain matching. Let's listen to context here.
Cut the noise and find my own position. You won't change the world, just spilling your opinion. So turn it off, turn it out, I'm forging my own mission.
It could just get that mid to poke right out. This was my favorite. So let me show you what I used to do with guitars all the time. Decapitator. I use this all over guitars all the time. Now with this rhythm sound, I have like a traditional mic sound. These are ribbons, and that is a PRS Archon into a Mesa cab with vintage 30s. And then on top of that, I have a track where I ran the guitar through a Pog an octave down. So thick, but I always like running Decapitator just to clip it. Pushes those mids forward, right? I love it. It's nice and subtle, but I decided to try Kraftur. And you can see I went ham. I went ham with it. Listen to this. Completely changes the guitar sound in a really cool way. Like, talk about bringing the mids forward. But what's interesting is like this is a ribbon mic, and that was what I was struggling with on this. So I get kind of that immediacy of the ribbon that I really like. I get the taming of like those super harsh upper tones of a guitar cab and a really distorted head, but I can bring like that mid life back here. That's probably pushing it too far just to show you what it can do. But Kraftur is like super simple on the surface. It looks really easy, but there's a lot of complex things happening here. And what I've found is it's very dependent on the signal that you're feeding it. It reacts kind of unexpectedly in a delightful way to a number of different sources. It's a really, really interesting clipper. For 99 bucks, give it a try or don't. Go try the demo. That's free. Like I said, don't listen to just me, in my opinion. This is a sponsored video. Go check it out, go try it, go see if you like it. If you guys like this video and you want to see how I made this last song with AEA N13 mics, go check out this video down below. I'm Resident Loser Jeremy. I'll see you in the next one.